There you go. Well, get ready for summer sprints.
You know, I brought mine too, but they reflect the screen a little bit too much, so I will probably leave them off.
So I just lost mine. I lost my, I just got a new favorite pair of glasses, which I reluctantly purchased because they were more than $10. And oh Michael, you look really good. I like that style. And I'm really upset. I got these ones, they're called like dragon ones, and they're orange and green. But anyways, they were like too wild for me. But then I fell in love with them. I'm like, but now I can't find them. So but
Check
yeah.
your kid stuff.
Yeah, I should check it. Yeah. But
these are my COVID glasses. They're like, I don't want to touch my eyes while I'm out in public glasses. So they're not actually sunglasses, but they do offer like blue light and UV protection. So they work.
That's good. Yeah, that's good stuff. Like I don't know how to take you seriously.
Come on, man. I got the Hawaiian shirt on and everything.
You're very like Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah. And this
I had that movie memorized.
Yeah. But this is goth Hawaiian. See, it's gothic Hawaiian with the dark colors.
That's how I think of you. Yeah.
Awesome. Goth Hawaiian.
Amazing. Well, now that we are appropriately attired and ready for this conversation, how about we got some stuff we got to figure out, some things we can do. But for our listening audience, to kind of introduce them on some things that we're doing. So we've introduced last time our variant manager. I talked about kind of its reasons for existing, what the heck it is, and all that good stuff. So if you haven't checked that out, go back and listen to that recording a bit. And then, well, I imagine we'll talk about it again because we have to. We're building the thing. But we also mentioned we're building this thing called Foster Checkout. We're building commerce reports. We're building our Nuxt 3 headless thing, which is really kind of the headliner. But we're doing these opening acts first is really kind of what we're doing. So our opening acts here, we had last time we opened with variant manager. So then let's jump into the next opener is Foster Checkout, which we've just named. It's not a overly thought out name, but it just happened. And so maybe it'll just stick. But Michael, you've been,
I can't, but before we jump in though, we should probably just like introduce ourselves again since we're all kind of new to this. And so that way people who don't pick up on the first video know who's talking. So I'm Derek. I am the current head of engineering at Foster Commerce.
I'm Michael. I am a senior front-end and back-end developer at Foster Commerce.
Is that an official title?
That's what it says on the website. So I'm taking it.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I've been going for staff for Michael, but senior is good too.
I'm fine with it.
That's awesome. I'm Stephen Callender. I'm the owner at Foster Commerce. That's us. Welcome to our roundtable that is made up of it's a bad joke. Let's just move on. All right, so Foster Checkout. Michael, I feel like you can you tell us about Foster Checkout, like where it came from, like even the history of like what we've struggled to do with it or how it came to life?
Yeah, I think it was kind of born out of our want to have sort of best practices during the checkout process, not reinventing the wheel every time, and having a sort of base ideas for our own selves, having our own set of steps that a user goes through, sort of the UX of that, the process of checking out in the e-commerce site, which should be similar in all sites, but sometimes it changes. And then there are some sort of best practices. So we use this sort of idea when it wasn't really code, but it was like in the back of our heads, like, okay, should do this, should do this, should do this. And then we sort of replicated it in client projects until we got to the point it was like, well, hey, let's not, be constantly reinventing the wheel. And for a while back, we were looking at this as, why don't we come up with a sort of set group of templates, of Twig templates that goes through the checkout process, not unlike the sort of sample templates that come with Commerce sort of thing, but with our own opinions on them and how that process should go. So that was the sort of the initial thrust of coming up with this, and of course being able to use it on client sites. Then the idea came, well, this could also be very useful for other people to use as well. So why don't we kind of formalize this a little bit more and make it as light as possible and as simple as possible to integrate into existing builds. So you have a site that's on Craft, they're going to start using Commerce. You can just drop in our Foster checkout templates and its accompanying plugin, and you're off to the races. Sort of idea.
Perfect. Yeah. And so we're now at this thing where now we're building, or I guess before I even jump further, like Derek, because you're still being newer to the team. Obviously you've worked on the Foster checkout a little bit. Is there anything that you feel like we're missing about like what's helpful to know about this thing?
No, I feel like the Michael got the core of it with a consistent checkout UX that kind of matches some other more popular checkout systems, so that like users kind of know what to expect. I think that's to me the core of it, of like a consistent reusable checkout that clients can still make their own. That's the other side of it, is like we're thinking about this from a themability. So it's not just like, oh, your checkout is the same colors, themes, labels, like generic, but this is still your checkout, but it just has a consistent flow for users who sort of like can follow the steps.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one of the things I like too about it is obviously internally, we don't have to always, Michael, as you're saying, reinvent the wheel. We've kind of solved this problem once, and we kind of keep using it. But I also think with commerce, it's with Craft and with Craft Commerce, one of the challenges is sometimes, if we think in the sense of like supporting other devs, making Craft Commerce more approachable, because we like using it. And we think, I guess, I feel like the more people who are using it, the more people are talking good things about it, then that helps us. And we just kind of build up the ecosystem a bit, and kind of like make it a more approachable thing. But commerce can be difficult, especially a lot of times you have developers who are working on a commerce site who they're not commerce developers. Like, so they get thrown into a project, or they take on a project that then all of a sudden becomes overwhelming. And it's like, wait a minute, this is a lot more difficult to configure and taking more of my time and killing my budget, so I like the idea too of being able to provide this offering to, like, you can, as you said, Michael, just plug this in and you should be off and running, and you don't have to understand the under the hood. You could get into it, it's available for you because it's clearly a Craft site, and so everything's available to you to mess with and customize, but you don't have to. You can just focus on the other pieces. And so what I like too is, even on our own projects, we're telling clients, like, we're not going to design the cart and checkout pages. Like, it's just not going to be in our Figma files or anything like that. So you're just going to use ours. Like, you get our checkout. And so they love it. Because they don't want to have to think through that. They're not those experts either, in that sense. So I'm super excited about it. So that's good. So how about we transition then and like talk about how we're doing it, maybe a bit, like what's our approach to building this thing out. And I think we still have some decisions about even around some of that, of like how we're structuring things. But Michael, you've mostly been building it. And then Derek, you're coming in and kind of doing some reviews on it. Like, where is this thing? Like, what's it built on? How are we going with it? Like, tell us about it.
Well, this initial sort of MVP that we're working with now is a set of Twig templates that are dropped in. It uses Petite View to sprinkle in some JavaScript. We chose Petite View. We didn't want to make this a very build script heavy sort of thing, and we wanted to make it as simple as possible for us to work on, but also to implement on a client site. See what else it does. It has an accompanying plugin for the personalization or the customization, features in it, where whoever the developer is who's setting this up has a plugin config file that they can go in and they can set the primary color that should be used throughout the UI, the font stack. If it's a Google, right now it's only working with Google fonts, but we can add on to that later. They can select the font stacks. There's also other settings in there on like defining which field is to be used for like the preview images in the cart. It includes it's called Foster Checkout, but it also includes a cart page. So I guess change the name now to Foster Checkout Cart or Cart Checkout. I don't know. So it's got those two steps into it. And yeah, we wanted to go with Petite View for the sort of minimal the interactions that have to go on, because we already kind of work with Vue ourselves and Nuxt, and it just seemed like a very natural way for us to go with that on the functionality side of it. And yeah, that's how it's built, what it's built on. We're still looking at the idea of maybe having a full on maybe Vue Nuxt version of it, but now this first stage, we think it's probably going to be best, and probably the most demand if it's Twig templates, because a lot of sites are just, the craft sites and commerce sites are using that Twig to output data. They're not doing a full headless e-commerce site.
Yeah, that's one of the decisions I think Stephen's getting at that we have to kind of make is, do we build a Nuxt plugin or Nuxt module or something that adds these components and things? And I think like to the goal of like a consistent UX, it could be kind of an interesting like approach of like, oh, headless sites and Twig sites all built on Craft all have kind of a consistent checkout flow. So like maybe it's something we want to do. I'm still trying to make my mind up on it. Yeah, other things I know that we need to do on the Twig side. So right now the checkout is a single page that kind of like works through a sort of like tabbed interface, and I would love to split that out into each step is kind of its own page so that there's better navigation and things. A little context for everyone watching, I did a like initial accessibility review of what we had, and so I went through and thought about like how do keyboard users navigate through it, and like what's the user experience of like going through it, and some other stuff, because one of my background pieces of information is accessibility, and so I try to really think about that on anything that we build here at Foster Commerce.
Yeah, we do have to make, so I guess in my mind, we're eventually wanting to build both, because we're building a lot of Nuxt and headless sites we need checkout anyway. This first version is also kind of partly demanded by a current client site that we're doing. We just decided, let's just do it for this one. Let's just force it, So we've told the client, this is being delivered. And so it kind of forces our hands to deliver on this thing. And it's a Twig site. So this one is Twig. So we're running with that first. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'll finally probably be happy where we are once we have exactly what you described, Eric. It's like we have the same user experience as much as possible in a headless site and a Twig site. And so for us, like I would love for us where we have a single design. So this is the part we still need to work on a bit too, is where we have a design of this checkout flow. So right now we're kind of just starting with dev, like Michael, you've kind of created it, we're just going to go in, but we've not gone through UX designs. We haven't gone through UI designs, any of that. We're just going straight into coding, because you have kind of so that skill set as you're coding to just kind of design as you go, which is great. But then we need to work backwards a bit and then design it. So that's something that we're going to have Lisa do. And that
Who's Lisa?
Oh yeah. So we're to have Lisa's our designer. So Lisa's our wonderful designer. She's also new to us this year. And so she is designing all sorts of things. She's a UX designer primarily. So she's going to come at this. So her project is going to be to study the whole best practices bit of things, study the accessibility things, and really take research even from Baymard on their guidelines for all of their cart and checkout stuff. And we'll, implement some of those things to make sure that we're following as many best practices that make sense. But then we have a design file. So where I kind of want to be is where we have a design file that has our foster checkout in it, that then matches code that we have in Twig. So that'd be the first part. So our Twig code matches our design files, so that when so they're the same, so that when we have a new client project and they need to brand it, they need to look, then Lisa can even start of like, okay, I know what we're starting with. I can brand some things there if we want to customize it at any point, or if we just say like, nope, we don't even need to brand it at that point. We're just going to use the customizations in the plugin to modify, certain pieces from there. So that's the thing that's kind of unknown, of like how far, we might rebrand, and like how much the plugin will do, or like allow you to extend. Like, I think, because Michael, you've built it to where I think both are pretty available to us. It's like you can kind of rebrand it a little bit with colors and whatnot, and just default without diving into the code. You just configs, but then it's craft, so you could just take it and run with it and edit it and add your own stuff as well. But I think that's where I want to be. Obviously the designs wouldn't be in the release, like, a version 1 of this thing that we put out there. It would just be the actual plugin itself. But that's the work I feel like we got to do is all right, we have this prototype. Essentially, it's more than a prototype really, but we want to now, like, okay, let's properly move through it and really identify what's the design going to be, and let's do it in design files too, and think through it that way. That way we can iterate a little bit faster in there and kind of change things up without it having to modify the code. So I feel like that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, it's just kind of also speaking to, it's Twig. If the case that the developer wants to go in and change anything, they're already a craft developer, they can go in and move stuff around if necessary. But also on the front end sort of work as well, we decided to go full Tailwind on this. So Tailwind seems to be a pretty well received sort of the utility framework, and a lot of people know it, so that will make it that much easier for the developer to make visual alterations if necessary on the Tailwind classes, and they don't have to go diving into CSS class files and stuff and trying to get in our head what we think a component is and where the style should be. It's right there in front of them. So
based on what we know now too, so the flow, right? The things, what are some of the pieces that are important for us? Like, what makes our thing kind of a unique? I know, because I did a .all talk. I always forget which years they were, in 2018 or 19. I think it was 18. That basically talked about our idea then. So 5 years ago, what our checkout was like, and the different pieces, and how one of our goals in checkout is to have people have fewer clicks through there. So like, what's a way that we can reduce the amount of time it takes to fill out forms? Because obviously the faster people can make it through a checkout, then the more successful you'll have it converting and people not dropping out. And obviously you want to keep people in the cart itself or in the checkout flow, and not, encourage them to move out. For example, did y'all know this one? Lisa and I were actually talking about this one recently. In our current version, our coupon code is very visible in the cart and checkout. It's kind of like above the summary even. It's like, so it's almost begging for a coupon, right? Like, if you don't have a coupon, like, this is front and center, you should be filling this out. And when we were looking at the Baymard stuff, that was one of the things that we're like, wait a minute. Baymard has this interesting comment about coupon codes, how whenever you have a coupon field very visible like that, it encourages people to go hunt for coupons. Then they leave your site and they're like, oh, I want to go find a coupon. And I am that person. So whenever I see coupon, I'm like, oh yeah. And let me go. My wife has an app to like load coupons whenever we're like shopping online. We'll like check, are there any coupons around the internet that can help us? And we find deals sometimes. And but it does encourage you to go look at like, oh, am I not getting the right deal? Like, should I wait for a coupon? Should I wait for sale? And then you maybe not like convert. And so you're just like, oh, I'll wait, you know? So that the suggestion from Maymart is to, so that people don't leave your site unnecessarily, is to kind of put a coupon behind like either an accordion, or some other expose another view in some way, that whether it's, I don't think they even suggest modals whatsoever, but their main, I think, suggestion is accordion. Basically just kind of pop it open in there, and that way it's available, it's there for people who have coupons and are shopping for that, but it's not encouraging people to go to go do that by default. So that's a piece that we'd want to include in that, right? Is that thoughtfulness around kind of those things. Are there other pieces of things that you've seen or that you especially like of what we're doing?
Well, one of the things that, and I think this was from your talk in 2018 in Berlin. And I remember at the time, was it Commerce 1 or 2 or Commerce?
I
I'm
think
not sure.
two.
It was
I don't know.
Commerce 2.
I
Yeah.
don't remember.
And the sort of example templates that came with it had one way of doing things. And you gave your talk, and one of the things you brought up was like, okay, the first thing you should be asking if the user isn't logged in is their email. You check the email if that's the first key part of it, and consequentially, and also to check if the user, they're going to input their email address, because that's sort of like the binding element that's going to bind the order to them, so that at the same time, what we're doing is we're checking to see if that user existed, they're just not logged in yet, and then immediately saying, hey, you've already got an account here, log in to make this quicker, that sort of thing. So as a result of that, I think in Commerce 3, if I'm correct, they changed their example templates to match your idea on that. So that's one of the things, of course, that's going to be implemented in as well.
Take some credit from that.
Yeah,
Influencing the
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Shopify too. They have email first. I would take the credit for that.
You're not getting paid for that, or what?
No, I don't think it was my idea, but yeah, I don't have any residuals whatsoever. Definitely did not set that up properly. Yeah, that was yeah. I mean, that comes from that same idea of like, because in commerce, I mean, the email is the center, is the identifying piece, right? It's the thing. So what I like about it too is it's also the piece that's what marketers need. So for people who, if you started this transaction for whatever reason, and obviously some marketers are really aggressive about it, but sometimes it's nice to get a reminder like, oh yeah, I'm doing that, I'm checking out that thing, and for brands you really enjoy, like, oh yeah, you started a checkout process, and maybe it's only 5% of the time that you care about those emails, the abandoned cart emails that you get. But for marketers, it's really helpful because people who have started this engagement with you have left for whatever reason. The first thing you have is their email address, so you can then communicate with them about those things like, hey, are you really wanting this thing again? So hopefully people who do it respectfully, but that idea is it benefits both the actual tech and the marketing side from their end users. So if they have an account, then it might remind them that they can log back in. I actually had an experience on a site recently where I didn't know my password. So it did that in the checkout. I don't think it's a commerce checkout, but it email first. It knew I had an account. So I was like, hey, we recognize you have an account, like just log in. But it had a little sublink that was like, you don't know your password, just request a link, we'll send you a link and you just log in that way. Right. It was beautiful. I was like, this is what I want. So I just went and it was able to log in through that email without even having to care about what my password was. And in the checkout flow, and it helped me because then I didn't have to enter all my stuff, all my address and credit card were already kind of stored in there. And I was like, easy, boom. So I like it. Derek, did you have any favorites of things after you reviewed it? They're like, this is something we should be either continuing to improve or like we've done well.
I don't know. It's been a couple of weeks since I've looked at it. I was gonna ask about the. It was funny because you mentioned the coupon thing, and then I was gonna ask about what about the email thing, because it's like the story that you just had of like, oh, I forgot my password. Well, then people are gonna be jumping back and forth between passwords and email. So I just thought it was kind of perfect. You had a story for them already, because I was just thinking about that. Like that's a good way to bounce off, because it's like, oh, I don't remember my password, or oh, I should go look that up, or I should do the forgot password flow, and then 15 minutes later, and I forgot what I was doing.
Yeah. So I guess that's a new feature we'll add in is the email.
Magic links.
There we go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does
definitely do
Craft
that.
even support that?
Yeah.
Maybe with a
I don't
plugin,
think-
maybe. Or,
I don't know, out of the box. We don't use that feature a lot ourselves, but I mean, yeah. Why? Yes. I mean, isn't the answer always yes, really? And it's just more like, well, how long does it take to make it happen?
to make it, yeah, to include it in the plugin. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure something exists with that. There's got to be.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know specifically. What about, do y'all have ideas? So one of the things that we saw too is the idea of like those fast payment options like PayPal, Shop Pay, Amazon Pay, like all those things. And what's common with those is to put them even on the cart page, like, hey, just click PayPal or whatever on the cart page and just check out, right? I'm not a fan of it, but you see it and I get it, because I imagine it's something that's really nice for users and really nice for, maybe it's nice for merchants, because then people check out, they're more likely to like finalize.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. So my last place, that was something that they kept asking us for, was examples with Apple Pay and Google Pay and things like that, because exactly that. It's essentially a one-click checkout, because it has your address, it has everything. So I think I've heard, or at least the merchants we had were convinced that there's higher conversions for it, because well, you might not like it. It's just a one click. It's got your shipping address. It's got your billing address. Three clicks and you're done. So kind of the thing that you said was the goal of this is like reduce the number of clicks. And so that's one way that you can do it, is like do that, or do like buy now, right? Like that's something I use on like Amazon all the time. Like just buy this now, and then not worry about what's in the cart, or buy it separately from what's in the cart. So depending on the merchant, like that can be kind of useful. I imagine single channel e-commerce merchants, the benefit of like buy now is probably not as high as like multi-channel merchants like Amazon or something, where you might have like a bunch of different kinds of things in your carts.
Yeah. So should we do it? Like, here's the pain point for me is like, but maybe I don't know. I'm very open to the idea that like, I want to learn. So like there's something missing. I feel like when you have that, at least from maybe I'm thinking on the code side or the merchant side a little bit more, there's possibly a pain point is like, how do you get the right shipping method, for example? So if you're on the cart page and like, you don't have, let's imagine it in the craft world. So like we have shipping options in there. We even have tax things, rules that are in there. Like all of that stuff is sitting in commerce. But if you're on the cart and you're not logged in, you haven't entered any of that information other than this is the thing I want to buy, and you click, Amazon Pay, like gonna buy with Amazon Pay, and you get, the iframe or whatever it is to log into that, get all that data passed to there. Like, how do we make sure? And maybe this is something it's possible and I just haven't thought about too much. But like that whole, like getting the configuration, like, okay, are we actually charging the right amount then based on like their address? Do we have to like call back to Craft to get the right, shipping options, or is it kind of like you're saying, it's more of the buy now? It's like, if you go that direction, you're kind of go with the defaults, like you get all the default things, like and the tax is going to be captured in there, and we have to send that data back. So then we can put that as the line item as the tax, the adjustment or something in there. Like, I don't know the answer to how we do it, because we've not done it.
I've never seen it in like, I don't think I've seen a lot in the cart, unless it's something that has just like it's an expensive item that has just like you pay this for shipping. I don't think I've ever seen it in the cart. Like, so I would have to do more research and see some examples. But like, even if it's just on the payment screen, like if it's, you know, you do like the different addresses and then you get to the payment piece and then you do that, like that's still, it's similar to like not needing to enter in your credit card information. I know from like a security perspective, there's some suggestion that things like Google Pay or Apple Pay are more secure than like entering your credit card information. And it's like, I know that Craft doesn't handle it directly, so it's not like you have to worry about your credit card being stored like in a Craft database or something. But I have like, I know that's one of the concerns and why some people recommend just doing those kind of anywhere you might use a credit card. But yeah, I'd have to do more research. I imagine there has to be ways to get shipping and other information into those checkout flows.
Yeah. Well, maybe somebody who's watching has already done it and they can say, hey, we've done that. Like, here's how we solve it. Because we've avoided it. We've done exactly, Derek, what you said, where we put it on the payment page. So we have everybody go through that process and just put it as a payment option. So, you know, whether you're paying with credit card and people don't know, but it's like through Stripe or some Payflow or something, or authorize, and then you have another button somewhere, like on that page where it's PayPal or whatever the other payment method might be through the third party kind of service. But yeah, it's typically on that last page where that's where I like it for those reasons, because then you can go through it. But it's that idea of putting it early is the one that's interesting. So we have this plugin, and we're going to put it on a build. So we're working on one. Michael, you're the kind of the dev lead on this thing. We're needing to wrap this thing up. We got a month. We want to wrap this thing up. So, but it may not, as we said, I think in the beginning, it may not be the full version of what we're going to put out there for commercial release. But what do we have left? So like we've talked about, Lisa's going to do some design things on that, but that may not impact this current version of it. So like for us, like what are the things we have? I'll already name off the one. Derek, you said we want to make it multi-step kind of checkout, so it's not a single page thing. Are there other pieces?
So it's already multi-step, but like multi-page, to be clear.
Multi-page.
So
sorry.
It's already multi-step, but not multi-page.
Got it. So make it multi-page. Are there any other things that we're currently like putting time into?
Yeah, we need to finish up the payment stuff itself, getting in the gateways and hooking them up and making it open enough so that, you know, in this case, a client's going to be using for payment. We're going to set them through. What was it? Was it Stripe on that one? But I mean, we have to.
PayPal, I think it's Payflow.
Payflow. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's right. Correct. So, but that's the sort of in the larger view, that's the biggest piece that we have left, which is just bringing in the different payment gateway options. You know, so we have to think about it in the fact that it could use one gateway because you know, when it's out in the wild, it could use, you know, whatever the gateway is set up for the commerce site. So we have to ensure that it works. We're kind of, that idea is already in the example templates that come with commerce or anything like that, but it's taking us and it will be us and kind of refining it a bit to make sure it works well with these different payments. And because we've also, I don't know if these are problems that are going to come up, but we just want to check them to be sure. I think when we did our last headless build, even though this isn't a headless build, but when we did our headless build of the commerce site, we had some things that we had to figure out with PayPal wasn't working as it should have been. So we're just going to keep our eye on that to make sure that it does work. So it shouldn't be a problem, but that's one of the things we have to make sure it works well.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that's our intro and to our Foster checkout system, which will be a plugin with templates that you could just drop in, kind of a plug and play system into your commerce sites so that you don't need to worry about that piece of things. Just got to config some branding and you can go from there. So look for that to be at your local convenience store sometime in the fall. And then we'll just go from there. So yeah, but we'll come back next week, talk about I guess now I just set our theme. So our headliner, we're going to talk about last. So we're making you wait for our Nuxt 3 project. But we did variant manager, we've done foster checkout, and now I guess we got to talk about commerce reports next week a little bit more. Cool. Well, that'll be fun. And until then, do you want a proper like sign off thing? You want your own little saying? Tweedledee, Tweedledoo.
Or like a catchphrase or something, or what?
Just kidding. All right, we'll catch you next week. Hey, so thanks for listening and watching. Hope you learned a little bit more about how we're kind of thinking about this stuff, especially our foster checkout. But send us your questions, send us your comments. And if you haven't signed up already to our newsletter, then go ahead and do that so you can be the first to know when we drop another one of these. You can subscribe on our YouTube, your preferences of how you want to get notified. So go ahead and do that. And then if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be entered into a drawing to get one of our new Foster Commerce t-shirts, which we still got to make. But we will make them and you might win one.